So here I'm going to show you how I made the board. I marbled it and then I pebbled it for underneath this cauldron cake. So first I have my fondant, my white fondant, and then I have that black strip of fondant that I've just laid over top. Now, in order to marble a board or marble fondant, it's all about how you mix these two colors together. So I have just a little bit of the black because really what I'm going for is a white and a gray sort of look here. If you notice, I'm pulling right there, I folded over the fondant, which is one thing that you can do. And then you pull the fondant and fold it over on itself that way. So those are really the two ways that you should kind of mix this together, not your traditional mixing way, by stretching it out and folding it over, and then you can just fold over the long way like there as well. And if you keep doing that until you see kind of the color that you like, you can start rolling it out. And you can roll it out like normal. I have my PVC pipe here that I use to roll out my fondant because it's just easiest for me that way. And I've got my little acupuncture needle that I use to pop the little bubbles in my fondant as I'm rolling it out. By the way, whenever you see a bubble, go ahead and pop it. Don't wait, because if you roll over it, you're just going to make the bubble bigger and expand it, and it'll mess things up. All right, so I like this side of the fondant, but I thought, what if I flip it over? I wonder what the bottom looks like, because often the bottom will be even cooler. And so after I popped the bubbles, I did that, flipped it over, and you can see the bottom is even cooler. So if you're trying to get a marbled look on your fondant, this is one way to do it. And you can use this fondant to cover any regular tiered cake or really for any application that you want. I was using it for the board underneath the cauldron cake because at first I was just going to do like a slate board, and here I am cutting into it so that I can easily place it around the threaded rod. I was going to do a slate board, but I decided I didn't like the look. I wanted a cobblestone kind of board later, so that's why I kind of mixed the two, but the original idea was just to do slate, which is why I marbled it in the first place. But I have shortening rubbed all over the board so that my fondant will stick here. And I like to do shortening instead of water, especially with wood, because water and wood, not a good combo. But also shortening, you can still kind of move the fondant around if you haven't placed it exactly where you want it to be. All right, so for the slate look that I was telling you I was going for, I have this roller that I got off a website called Aftosa, AFTOSA.com. They have all kinds of like impression mats and stuff like that. So I'm using this roller actually for the first time, so I wasn't sure how I was going to like it. It just kind of gives it a bumpy look like you would find in slate, and I think if you were doing a slate floor, this would look really cool. But like I said, I decided I really wanted cobblestones. I felt like a witch's cauldron needs cobblestones underneath there. So I started with this using my straight edge, my disposable razor blade here to cut off the edges. It works beautifully. You can buy a pack of 100 of these disposable razor blades, and I'm still going through the pack I got like 2 years ago. And just cut off the edges so they're nice and smooth. And then I was like, no, I got to do the cobblestones. So I had this impression mat it's actually by Duff, Charm City Cakes. It comes in 2 sizes of pebbles, and this is the bigger size. And so I am putting this over the marbled, slated stone effect. It turned out well in the end, though. I was happy with how it turned out. One thing is you want to try and avoid seeing those lines where your pieces kind of interlock. In order to do that, don't see right here, I decided, okay, no more lines, McGreevy. So I kind of push in the middle, but I don't push in around the edges. And that will keep those lines from forming, because those lines form by pushing in the edges. So if you avoid pushing the edges, then you can make sure that you don't get those lines. And you don't have to line this up perfectly because nobody's really going to notice. All right, so I had the cobblestone effect, but it was still too light for me. This needed to be like a dark, smoky cake. So I decided I was going to do a black wash over top of this. I'm using edible art paints here, a few drops, and shake up your edible art paints really, really, really well. That's a big, big thing you must do with those. And now I'm using my Everclear. You could use vodka. This is just higher proof. They don't sell it everywhere. I poured way too much in my little bowl. I always do that. Always. What is wrong with me? Every single time. She can't be taught. So I had to end up going back in and putting more black into it. Wasting my edible art paints because I'm not going to use nearly this much of a wash. But yeah, that's what happens when people cannot get their brains to learn from their mistakes. Anywho, I have got my pastry brush here, which drives me nuts, by the way, because the little bristles fall out. They fall out. And then I find a little bristle on the cake. And if like a customer found a little pastry brush bristle on the cake, they'd think it was a hair and not a pastry brush bristle. And I hate that. Why can't I need a pastry brush with bristles that don't fall out. Anyway, here I am just wiping this now over my cake. And I like a wash like this because it's not, completely opaque. You can still see through it a little bit. To the kind of the marble underneath it, so it's variegated. There's variation in the color, which is what I wanted for the board. And that's it. And then that will dry very quickly with that being mostly Everclear. My voice is cracking again. Sorry about that. And that is simply how I got my board. I don't like to spend tons of time on my board because when you're done with the cake, you're like done. But that is kind of a simple, easy treatment that you can do. Okay, hope you enjoyed.